24/7, 365. Hey, put down your phone, put it on silent, grab a nice cold beer, maybe a barley forage beer. Hey, one doesn't know. It's time for some NFL draft talk. We're here tonight with Sports Talk Line's NFL Draft Senior Correspondent Connor Barley. Connor Livesey. How you doing, sir?
Well, I like you're just adding me into the sponsorship there. The money will come out
right
of mine,
there.
too.
I wish you could. Why are you not having a beer with me?
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going really good here, man. I hope it's going good there. I understand that there's 4 guys. We're going to take a look at it as NFL draft season. Let's dive right in. I understand Isaac Nada is the first guy up, the tight end out of Georgia, right?
Yeah, he's a guy who's not getting talked about nearly enough as he should be. He played in Georgia. He was kind of underutilized in Georgia's scheme. Didn't do as many things as a receiver as a lot of these guys in this draft class, but he's probably just as talented, if not as talented, as some of the top guys that you're hearing mentioned. He had a crazy production stat. I thought he caught 30 out of 35 targets at Georgia in his senior year. So he's a guy that didn't see a lot of targets, but when they did target him, he was making plays. He was making big plays. So he's a real fun prospect to get to know about.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've got some highlights on him here. We'll put up on the screen. If you can break it down for us, that would really be great. Let's go ahead and bring those up if we could. And as we bring them up, well, here, why don't you take over, Connor?
And the thing you're going to notice here is he's not just a receiving tight end. He's a blocker. He's a very strong blocker. I don't know if there's any elite blocking tight ends in the college football era anymore, but you'll see him being able to pull in these situations and really fill guys out of those holes to open up running lanes for Elijah Holyfield and some of the other skill players that Georgia has. And he does that a lot in many different scenarios. He can move, he can pull, he can block in line, he can block out in space. So he's extremely talented in the blocking game. He catches the football well. He's a good athlete and a good route runner. I'm really excited to see what he does at the combine to compare his athletic ability to some of the other top guys.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like an exciting guy that could fit in with a lot of teams. Do you have a list of teams that might be interested in this type of guy yet? Or have you not got that far in your process?
Well, I look at him as a guy who's going to probably go in the second round, mid to late second round. So you look at a team like even the Jacksonville Jaguars who kind of need that tight end.
Right.
Maybe early in the second round if they don't land, one of the guys in the first round. There's some noise that they could maybe go tight end in the first round. But he's a guy that maybe at the beginning of the second round there, if they don't go in the first, that he fits. The Dallas Cowboys really need a tight end, and he kind of does the things that they like. He blocks.
Do you think that he would fit with a star on his helmet? I mean, that's a list of guys. They're not looking to find a guy that can just block. They got that. They're not looking to find a guy that can just run routes. They've got that. They're looking for a total package. They're looking for a Novacek, a Jay Witten. Can this guy be that all-around guy like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a guy that can play in line. He did it at Georgia. He can, pull and he can block and he can catch the football. He can run routes. He's a safety net. He kind of fits, I'm not comparing him to Jason Witten, but he kind of fits in that same role that can move around. He can block. He can catch. He can run routes. So I like him in that role actually a lot. So I think he could fit in that offense well. But like I said, the Jaguars are another team that I could see him fitting well with. And then another team that's kind of I don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because, I like tight ends with the Jaguars too because the QBs throw balls deep, but they land short. So you want tight ends that can come up with the ball, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. But and those teams in the middle of the second, back in the second round who were looking for tight ends, I think he's a perfect fit for. He's not a scheme dependent tight end. He can play anywhere. He can play anywhere. So he's a guy.
Oh, that's exciting. Not scheme dependent. Wow, that's gold for sure. All right, well, hey man, it's time. Let's speed up the position a little bit from the tight end position. Let's get a little bit faster with, as you said, probably the best name in the draft, Little Jordan Humphrey, wide receiver,
best
Texas.
Name in the draft. Big guy who mainly plays in the slot. He can line up outside as well, but he's a guy who he's not extremely quick. He's not extremely athletic, explosive, but he's got the size. He actually is a pretty decent route runner for his size.
Right.
He's got good hands. He's, going to be in the slot in the NFL as a big slot guy that gets free releases off the snap. I like him a lot. He's able to, make plays over the middle. He's able to go up and get the football. So he does a lot of different things that really make him an interesting prospect.
Oh man, that sounds like a lot of fun. I do believe we got some highlights here that you could break down for us if we could go ahead and run that for Mr. Humphreys. Here we
Yeah,
go.
you'll see him lined up at the in the slot at the top of the screen. You kind of it's hard to tell, but he should. Oh, so actually, he was lined up on the boundary there, which is even better. But you see him go up there, get the football. He's good in contested situations. He's got reliable hands. He's got strong hands. He does a lot of things as an inside guy, a lot of things as an outside guy that makes it you think that he could play at either spot at the next level, which is what teams are looking for, that versatility.
Right. Yeah, the versatility is key, man, especially in today's NFL. It's a passing game, but man, passing from where? Wide receivers that can line up all over the place. Those are gold right now, aren't
Yeah,
they?
and here he is in the slot running, a version of a deeper post route in the red zone, just going up 10, 12 yards and then cutting across the middle of the field there. Another contested ball where he's got to showcase his strong hands with the DB draped over him. He's able to do it. And again, he's not a guy who creates a ton of separation. He's not a super explosive athlete, but he makes a ton of plays. He's always one of those guys who makes plays, no matter if he's fast or not. He kind of reminds me a little bit of that Juju Smith-Schuster guy who doesn't run good, but he makes all the plays.
Oh, wow. Yeah. There you go. Juju Smith-Schuster. That's a heck of a thing. And then, yeah, look at this play. I mean, that's exactly who you're talking about right there, yeah?
Yep, just being able to go up, contested situations, fight off those defenders with his frame and make the catch.
All right, man. Dude, so with this guy here, the Steelers don't necessarily need him, although, Antonio Brown, maybe not. Two Jujus wouldn't be bad. Do you have a team scheme fit for this guy, or is he also somewhat independent in that regard?
Yeah, he's, independent, he's not undersized, so it's not like he's just fitting in the slot, even though I think that's where he's going to be best at the next level. But he's got the size to play on the boundary. He's got the size to play in the slot. Again, we talk about teams needing those guys. I look at a team like maybe even New England, who doesn't really have an explosive. They have Julian Edelman. Obviously, we saw that in the Super Bowl. But a team that uses guys inside and out, the Chris Hogans, the Josh Gordons. Obviously
right.
He didn't play at the end of the year, but a guy who can play inside, he can play outside. He just does things well. That's kind of what I see little Jordan Humphrey doing. Is just coming into a scheme where he's able to be moved around, he's able to be schemed open, and that's where it makes a perfect fit for me as New England.
Well, all I know is that wherever he does end up, they're probably going to lead the league in jersey sales because that name is just spank, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. I totally agree with that. All right, hey, let's move on. DK Metcalf, wide receiver, Ole Miss. What do you got for me, man?
He is the only receiver in this draft class that should be mentioned in the first round as a first-round graded wide receiver, and he has a ton of questions. So that should tell you a lot about the wide receiver classes. There's a ton of talent, but not a lot of top-end talent. He's a guy that's got the size. He's a great athlete. He's dealt with injuries. He's not a polished receiver. He's still kind of developing in that regard as far as route running, as far as just the nuances in his route running. So he's not a finished product, but man, the size, the athletic ability, the signs, the signs of plays that you saw him make at Ole Miss in his years there, you just see a guy who kind of reminds you, in that I hate to even say it. Again, we talked about this a lot, not comparing him to Julio Jones, but a guy with similar measurables.
No, you did. I heard you now.
Same, very similar measurables, and I think he's going to test maybe not quite as good as Julio did, but a guy who's going to run in the 4.4s. He's six. He's got the size.
That's incredible.
Exactly. He's a 6'4", 230-pound guy that's probably going to run in the 4.4s. That's incredible.
Well, let me ask you this, specifically about the wide receiver class, because I agree with you. Blue chip, can't miss talents. I mean, they're just, they're not there. Okay, it's not really what's happening right now with this draft. However, I mean, Jerry Rice was not a first rounder, not a second rounder. Not, it's like people forget that there's great wide receivers, not good wide receivers, not okay wide receivers. There are great wide receivers taken late. And what I'm getting at by this is when I look at this draft, when I start looking at these wide receivers, I go like, oh, well, yeah, he doesn't have the production. He's raw here. But I see guys, so many of them, not one, but like maybe a handful and a half that they could turn into all-around five-tool wide receivers, if you will. Could this be like maybe one of the best wide receiver drafts in a long time, and people just don't know it? It's got to be proven. It's got to be proven.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I do see this class as a class that a few years down the road, you're seeing a lot of these guys just be, some of the faces of the NFL. Someone like Juju Smith, who wasn't a first-round guy, but he just does everything. Again, he's not the best receiver in the NFL, but he's in that top 10 discussion. I could see the DK Metcalfs, the Deebo Samuels, the Andy Isabellas, those guys just kind of taking over those 10 to 15 best wide receivers in a few years because, again, they're not top-end talents. I don't think you're going to see a receiver go in the top 15. But the guys that you're going to see,
nor should they.
And the guys you're going to see go at the back end of the first, early second, mid-second, they're all going to be really good players for a really long time.
All right. Yeah, and that's what I'm feeling. I just wanted to get it from your eyes. Your eyes are a lot better at this than mine. Okay, mine are old, man. What can I say? All right. But, hey, we got one more guy we want to talk about before we go. Time's running a little bit short. Renell Wren, defensive tackle. I haven't done anything mainly in my career at Arizona State. But here I have all of the measurables, and then there was the Senior Bowl Wren. Talk to me about this guy because the more I see him, the more I love him.
Yeah, he's a freak, man. He's a 6'6", 315-pound guy that's going to run in the 4.8. Just a explosive athlete with all the size, all the intangibles that you could ask for. Really good off the field, really good on the field, even though his production probably wouldn't say that when you look at his stats. He wasn't a guy that really jumped off the stat sheet, but he was playing nose tackle in a 3-4 scheme at Arizona State, so he wasn't able to just burst off the ball, get up the field, get in the backfield. He was able to have the two gap, play more of the run, open things up for other guys. That's kind of was his responsibility at Arizona State. But at the Senior Bowl in the one-on-ones, he just absolutely dominated. He dominated in spurts at Arizona State when he was able to just rush up the field. And again, a guy who I think his best football is ahead of him by far.
Well, let's take a quick time out there because I love what you're saying about the best footballs ahead of him by far. And a lot of people don't get about how this guy can make such a splash in the Senior Bowl. When you go back and look at film on him, man, it's hard to find film that has splash on it. But explain what happens just briefly, if you could, about when you play a player, especially along the defensive line, but anywhere, out of scheme where he's, you're playing him at the 1 tech, but actually he could be a 3 tech or he could be, out on the end, in a 4-3. When he's out of position, out of scheme, and how when you give him a chance to shine with NFL level coaching, how that can change his career. And give me an example.
Yeah, you just look at guys who make plays that don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. That's kind of what I look for. Guys who play in the nose that should be playing the under, guys who are playing maybe, defensive end when they should be playing defensive tackle. You just look at the signs that they show, the splash plays they make, and then what they do consistently. So their explosive first step, their active hands, their power at the point of attack. You look at those guys, and he's a guy like that you won't see him make a ton of sacks, but you'll see him blow up the pocket and the quarterback.
Well, see him blow up the pocket. Okay, I believe we got a highlight on that. Okay, yeah, if we can put that up and talk about that.
Yeah,
and again,
far
as what it can do.
This play doesn't show up on the stat sheet, and it's actually a completed pass for a really nice gain. But you see just that explosiveness off the snap. He walks the center all the way back into the quarterback's lap. Quarterback makes a really nice play here, gets the ball to the receiver, and picks up some yards. But just the ability to, at the next level, that guy's got defensive ends coming off of each edge there who are also putting pressure. So the quarterback stepping up into him, and it's not likely a sack. Or he's flushing that quarterback out into a defensive end's arm, and it's a sack. So he's a guy that's not only going to make plays for himself, but make plays for other guys on his team.
So he's pushing, not only pushing the front of that pocket, he's with a guy like that, you can actually dent the front of that pocket, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Stopping the QB from stepping up, and then boom, that cuts down a lot of options, right?
Yep, correct.
All right. Well, that's pretty darn exciting. It explains why it was so tough for you to get an interview with that guy. But you finally did, I might say. Man, you've got a ton of interviews out there. I really love that. Hey, before we sign off, why don't you tell everybody how they can find you on Twitter, about the work you're doing, and about the NFL Draft and what's coming up.
Yep. Find me on Twitter at Connor NFL Draft. We are crushing all draft things at sportstalkline.com. So make sure you're logging onto there. You're checking out our interviews on the NFL Draft Talk podcast. Following all the draft work on Twitter for me, for Spinksy, who's doing a lot of work, for Steven.
Yeah.
All the guys over there who are helping out. You guys are doing great. Like I said, follow me on Twitter, follow the other guys on Twitter, follow our work on Sports Talk Line. Hopefully we're going to be at the Combine here soon. Hopefully we'll be at the draft here soon to cover that for you as well.
All right, sounds like a lot of fun. Hey, for everybody goes the social media moment, if you will, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube. We're going out on all these platforms. Follow, subscribe, notify, repost, and of course, retweet. But most of all, thank you. Connor, it's always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We'll see you guys next time.
All right, and for everyone out there, listen like you play with intensity.